Good evening. Welcome to Lace Up. Do y'all remember April? I introduced y'all to her a while back. And her little buddy, Little Biggins. He's standing in front of a quarter horse there, quite a ways this way in front of the quarter horse. You can see how tiny he is. I'm going to talk about those two in a little story tonight on Lace Up. But first I want to welcome you. If you are new, I'm Kelly Lace, and this is Lace Up with Kelly Lace. I thought I was going to be a little late getting on tonight, but I was able to get here at 7. So if you miss any of it, go back. I'll say that again at the end in case you didn't get in on the beginning. But I want to share a couple of stories with you tonight, and then how they pertain to me. April, this horse that I just showed you, she's crossed the Rainbow Bridge now, but we rescued her several years ago. We actually had her for almost 25 years after we rescued her. She's an Arabian, and Arabians are known for being highly intelligent, for being very athletic and high-strung, but they're so smart. They're so smart until they're not, you know. I'm going to tell you a story about April and Lil Biggins. Hey, Donna. Hey, Jan. I love those hearts and when you say hi on there. So if you're on here watching, say hi. It's just like sending a text, and I'll see if I don't respond live. I'll respond to you after a while, okay? April, we got home one day. My husband and I happened to be pulling in just about the same time. And as we pulled in the driveway, we have a long pasture in the front, so you drive up beside that pasture, but we noticed that April was in the front yard. And I said, oh, they've gotten out. And I thought, oh, man, she's eating some of my flowers, whatever, you know. I was kind of aggravated. April, I quickly noticed, this is April, was in a sheer panic. Absolute freak-out panic. Because Lil Biggins, the little miniature, had somehow gotten his head through the armhole of one of those white, solid plastic lawn chairs. Hey, Brother Cleveland. This chair was now mounted on Little Biggins' body, his head, and he kept running to his girlfriend, April, to see if she could help him get this thing off of him. She was quite convinced that this chair was eating her friend and was now coming to try to attack and eat her. She lost all common sense. She went crazy, absolutely frantic. And the more he ran toward her, the more she ran away, and she spotted the gate. We had opened the gate to come in the driveway. She made a beeline for that gate. He started coming toward us for help, which further accelerated her run toward the gate because she just knew this thing was trying to kill her. If you've ever seen a person like in a movie or something, just running, just running like they're, no sense at all, that was April. I couldn't stop her. I dare not step in front of her, but I was doing everything I could. And she made a beeline for that gate, got out the gate, and took off up the road. She was convinced this chair monster was going to eat her. So I hollered at my husband, and he ran and took care of the miniature and got the chair off him, made sure he wasn't hurt. I grabbed a halter and lead, and I scooted up the road. I took off behind April and finally caught hold of April. And when I got a hold of her, it took a minute because she went about half a mile up the road before she even stopped to look around. And then she was like, oh no, now I don't know where I am now. That's going to freak me out. The only thing familiar to her at that point was me. So I calmed her down enough to let me get the halter on her and had to walk her down and calm her. See, when a horse goes into fight or flight, if you know horses, when a horse goes into that mode, everything's out to get them. Bobby, you're a horseman. You know what I'm talking about. Once a horse goes into fight or flight, everything freaks them out. They are just convinced that everything's out to eat them. Right? So that's where she had been for a little while. Let Let me move this just a bit. There we go. Let me see if I can tilt that. There we go. So anyway, I got her calmed down, calmed her down, got her to settle down and refocus. Andy had removed the chair, so we got her back to the house and into the yard and then into her pasture, and all was well. But for those few minutes, she was just absolutely out of her mind, scared. And it was, I wish now we had it on film, because looking back now, it would have been hilarious to see him come trotting around that house with a chair hung over him, the little miniature. And he was black, it was white, so it did look like the chair was trying to eat him. And he was just kind of like, y'all, get this off me. What's going on here? This thing is stuck on me. But April, no, she had a whole different view. I want to tell you another story, and then I'm going to tie these two together tonight. When I was much younger, I went through some very abusive relationships. And because of the abuse and the scars that were left on me, I had become hypersensitivity. I had developed a hypersensitivity to insults. I assumed anything someone said was directed at me if it was an insult. If it was hurtful, I was suspicious of everything. I was extremely insecure. I couldn't stop and separate things. So during those years, my mom was going to have a surgery. Well, my mom, of course, my Aunt Carolyn was there, and my sister Rhonda was there, and we were waiting for her to go into surgery. And as they wheeled Mom out, my sister was irritated at something, and she made some remark as they rolled her away. And I mean, zing, I just took it to heart. And it was just, why would she, what did I do to deserve that? And I was hurt. But I said, you know what? I am not going to just assume. I didn't do anything to deserve that remark. And I want her to answer for it. I want to understand why she would attack me that way. So I asked her, I said, Rhonda, what did you mean by that? And she said, by what? And I said, well, that remark you made when they wheeled Mom out. What did you mean by that? And she said, well, that nurse had said so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And it hit me. I mean, it hit me. I went, oh. Y'all, that moment changed my life. It changed my life because I realized in that moment that I had been seeing and hearing things through the filter of the abuse that I had suffered. I began to put great effort into thinking things through before assuming, into not jumping to conclusions. You know, we can get so. Anyway, I got to where I had stopped and engaged thought. Through the years, this helped to develop great discernment. It helped me to develop some discernment, and it taught me to keep my peace. Now, the reason that we give you, why am I telling you these stories? Because we need to lace up. We need to be prepared, because Matthew 24:10 tells us that in these end times, let me read the scripture to you. It says, then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and hate one another. Y'all, we can get, if we're looking through our filter, or we're dealing with our stuff, or we haven't dealt with our stuff, we're seeing things, hearing things through our filter, we're assuming things, we're blowing things out of proportion, whatever. We can get offended. We can put up walls. We can do things that limit what God wants to do through us. Y'all, God needs ambassadors on this earth to live a life full of the love of the Lord. And we have a hard time doing that when we're easily offended, when everything is taken to heart as being against us. So, I want us to quickly go through 3 main points that come from those 2 stories. The one about the horse getting freaked out and panicked. If you came in late, because I said I was going to start late for earlier, and then I was able to get here on time. If you came in late, go back and listen to those 2 stories, and you'll see how all this ties in. Number 1, the first point I want to make is don't blow things out of proportion. Stop and engage common sense. Don't panic. Don't assume. Don't just latch on to, oh my goodness, this is the horrible thing. 2 Timothy 2:23 says, avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. Don't we see that in the political arena right now? Foolish, just stuff that, stop and engage your brain first before. But so many people are so hung up in their stance that they won't even look at things through a common sense realm, in a common sense realm. That applies to number 2. Number 1, don't blow things out of proportion. Number 2, don't jump to conclusions. Ask questions and listen before you decide. Yes, Barb, it's always great to ask questions. Jesus asked a lot of questions to get understanding. Yes, that is absolutely right. That's where I'm going with this. Proverbs 18:13 says that he that answers a matter before he hears, it's foolishness and shameful to him. Ask the questions. Listen for the answers before, or listen to the explanations before you form a judgment, before you jump to a conclusion. How many times have I seen people finish a sentence, especially when I was back in that abuse? I'd start to say something and my sentence would be finished for me in the wrong way. And then I would be in trouble for it. Don't jump to conclusions. Check your filters, y'all. If you've got damage in your past, and we all do, to some degree or another, if you've had abuse, if you're undergoing continued stress, long-term stress, long-term stress will put us in that touchy, and it makes us all nervous and ready to, like that Arabian horse. I mean, everything that touched her freaked her out when she was in that fight or flight mode. Y'all, check your filters. Stop and think, okay, wait, could that have been meant so-and-so? Through developing these habits of just stop. I saw a thing on a show the other day with this girl that would just rattle off without, she had no filter as far as slowing things down. So filters are good and filters can be bad. You can hear things through a filter and that makes it not clear. You can blurt things out without a filter, and you can cause more damage than good. So check your filters. Engage them where they are needed. Be careful that you're not engaging them where they're not needed. Not needed. By developing habits of this girl in the show that I started to tell you about, she just blurted things out and she was told, take 5 seconds before you respond. Take 5 seconds. And so she would, and then she would answer. And by doing that, she stopped just blurting out the unfiltered things that caused hurtfulness or misunderstandings or anger. And I've engaged that in many, many times in my life. Just stop. Think. Engage your brain before you speak or before you accept a thought. By doing this, God has developed some discernment to where now I know when someone's saying something to attack me. I'm very keenly aware of controlling people, of manipulation, of hurtfulness, that's things that are intended to be skewed against me. I'm wise to those things. The word tells us to be wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove. Serpent's very, very, He's not always a negative thing. He's telling us to be wise as a serpent. The serpent was very crafty. We have to engage that these days. Okay, and number 3. Okay, number 1, don't blow things out of proportion. Number 2, don't jump to conclusions. And number 3, at all costs, keep your peace. A youth pastor's wife I used to work with would say, refocus. Keep your peace. Keep your focus on God. Isaiah 26:3 says, you, God, will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Keep means to preserve. He will preserve your peace, your shalom, your welfare, safety, and health. Whose mind, that means your imagination. Okay? Your thinking processes. If your mind is stayed on God, that means, I thought this was interesting, stayed, according to the Strong's Concordance, to reflexively lean on, to grab a hold of. In other words, it's your go-to. It's automatic. I'm going to put my mind on Jesus on this. What does God have to say about this? Make it a reflex, y'all. Make it the thing you run to. Make it boom. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go back to, what does God say about this? Because he trusts in you. It says, we'll keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. And that means to have confidence and a certainty. And as I finished this up tonight, right as I was about to walk in the room, 2 Corinthians 10:5 came to my mind. Cast down imaginations and every evil thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Bring every thought captive. Take that which would captivate your mind. Bring it captive. Submit it to the Lord. Y'all, in these last days, if we're going to keep from being offended, if we're going to keep from offending, we're going to have to engage our thought processes and keep them submitted to God. Number 1, don't blow it out of proportion. Number 2, number 2, how did I word that? Yeah, why am I not even seeing that? Oh, don't jump to conclusions. And number 3, keep your peace. Keep your peace. Keep your mind set on the things of God. I love y'all. That's what I have for you this week. Keep those imaginations under control. Submit it all to the Lord. Don't just assume the worst from people, but be very wise. Be very wise and cautious. Love you bunches. If you need to reach me, if you want to reach me, I would love to hear from you. KellyLace@yahoo.com. If I don't respond to you, please message me on here because sometimes things will go into spam if it's not recognized, and I don't want to miss communicating with y'all because of that. Okay? Love you bunches. Very quick teaching tonight, trying to keep it under 20 minutes. But let's keep our thought. Let's keep it all submitted to the Lord so the Lord can use us to a greater way. Let's lace up so we can keep on walking through the joys and struggles of life together, and we can make a difference in this world. I love you bunches. See you next week. Lace up and keep on walking.